Harry Kane scoring but not living up to expectations. Harry Kane arrived in Munich with a lot of expectations. Bringing in Harry Kane was expected to make Bayern Munich a much more dominant force. From a team standpoint, the expectation is for Bayern Munich to win multiple trophies. Winning the league again and the Champions League was the plan. From an individual perspective, Harry Kane was supposed to come to Germany, walk into the league as the best striker, and prove it with his performances. 110 million for Harry Kane is a ton. His performance is needed to speak volumes for the amount of investment they've made. Herein lies the problem. Bayern Munich are not top of the league, aren't the favorite. Harry Kane is not the best striker in the league this season. There are only a Bayern Munich paid for the best, and a rank getting it. His numbers have been wonderful. 9 goals and 4 assists in the league. However, penalties must be taken into that account. He is fulfilling his duties statistically, but not with his performances. He's not even a top 3 striker in the league. Right now he is between the 4th and 6th. That is absolutely not acceptable for the expectation and the amount of money that was paid. We cannot be having this conversation a month from now, and him still being behind several strikers. He has the 2nd most goals in the league, but he's been outperformed by at least 3 strikers in the Bundesliga. These are the strikers that happened better than him this season. Serhou Guirassy from Stuttgart, Hoffenheim talent Max Boniface from Leverkusen, and possibly Jonas Wind at Wolfsburg, and Openda from Leipzig. With all due respect to everyone on this list, none of them are huge household names. Last season, when only Haaland had scored more goals than him, nobody batted an eye. Rightfully so outside of those in Bundesliga circles. For 5 of the strikers I mentioned, many would have to Google. This looks bad from 2 angles. First of all, there are 3 strikers in the league that have outperformed him, and they are not big names. The flip side of this is Bayern Munich are not top of the league at this point. They can't be considered the favorites. They have not established themselves as the imposing force they were expected to. They may not win silverware this season. They probably will, but they might not. Then looking across the pond to England, Spurs are top of the league and will have a fairly good shot of winning the league. I think he adds such an enjoyable component. However, he hasn't put forth many dominating performances. Bayern Munich did not pay 110 million for him to be between the 4th and 6th best striker in the league if we start adding midfielders, wingers, defenders into the mix. Harry Kane has not been a top 10 player in the Bundesliga, maybe even top 15. He is not the best player on Bayern Munich. The team is not running through Kane with everything that was paid for, and the amount in the jersey that he wears, and who used to wear it. He needs to be doing better than this. Bayern Munich worked tirelessly to make this deal happen. They are not getting the results of the deal that they expect. Lazio's into back top, Juve drops Milan, Roma closing in on Europe. There's been a bit of a shake-up this week in Italian football. The European chase, as long as the title race, was affected by some of the results and performances witnessed this weekend. Primarily Roma, Juventus, then both Inter and AC Milan. However, positive results for both Napoli and Lazio. Last year's Player of the Season Kvaratskhelia is back in business with another terrific performance after starting a little slowly. The Georgian super talent scored and assisted in Napoli's 3-1 victory over Hellas Verona, not a particularly challenging opponent. However, Napoli does have some deficiencies this season, and a strong performance not only as a team, but from the Georgian was what the doctor ordered. Lazio slowly climbed the table, get themselves up to 9th after they beat Sassuolo. Wasn't an outstanding performance, but they got there in the end. Then on the negative side of things, Fiorentina, who sit in a Champions League spot right now, were beaten by Empoli, one of the teams likely to be relegated. Their loss certainly affects some of the teams trying to tap into that Champions League position. However, this weekend in my eyes was about 3 fixtures. Roma versus Monza, Inter Milan versus Torino, and the big one, AC Milan against Juventus. Let's break them down and explore why they were important. Roma kicked off Sunday with a very early afternoon clash with Monza. The reason this match had a lot of importance was because of how badly Roma started the season. They came into the match with 2 victories in a row against not the best opposition. However, that said, Monza was going to be a challenge. With a huge fixture following Sunday match, they needed to find a way to get all 3 points. It was a tough battle. A chess match. Outstanding goalkeeping from Roma target Michel Di Gregorio, making crucial saves at the very end of the first half. Due to a red card, Monza was reduced to 10 men. However, Roma was finding it difficult to break down. Jose then brought on El Shaarawy and Asman to find themselves a winner. The Iranian was an absolute menace against the opposing defense, igniting Roma. In the late stages of the second half, the two substitutes would link up in a well-crafted goal in the 90th minute, with El Shaarawy bagging the winner in the 90th minute, as he was brought to tears after the false gambling accusations surrounding himself and Zalewski, as they cherish a moment together in the end of the match. However, they now find themselves with this victory 2 points from a European spot, and 3 points from a Champions League spot. After 3 matches, they were an 18th with 1 point. It was the worst start to a season since 1996. Now they are standing within grasp of being in a Champions League spot. The difficulty is next Sunday. They go to Milan to test themselves against title favourites, Inter Milan. Well, no one expects Roma to win the match. Roma has sky-high confidence at the moment, and will make things difficult. Speaking of Inter Milan, they got back in business after losing their top spot in the league. They threw away a 2-goal lead against Bologna prior to it. Lautaro Martinez has been the best centre-forward in Europe. That's not actually debatable. He got them back on track. An easy 3-goal victory, a clean sheet and an overall strong performance. 12 goals in 11 games in all competitions. The player of the season is already over. He is miles clear of the second best striker in the league. There's no signs of slowing down. He is obliterating everyone in his path. Not to mention Marcus Thurman has been a perfect number 2, as the two of them have played off each other. Both scored the victory. As I just mentioned, they will play Roma on Sunday. Those two will be key once again in what is expected to be a true battle. They go back to the top of the league and deserving way, so they are the overwhelming favourite to win the league. I said this before, I'll say it again. They are so much better than the second best team in the league that it would be a national embarrassment if they don't have their hands on the Scudetto at the conclusion of the season. Then finally, the biggest match the weekend. Juventus taking a trip to the Giuseppe Meazza to take on at the time top of the table AC Milan. AC Milan has rode an awful lot of luck this season. They should be giving credit for their hot start. However, collectively as a team, they haven't really proven or shown that they really should be a threat for the title race. Given the struggles of Napoli, they've taken advantage of it, but their performances this season hasn't been wildly impressive. Meanwhile, Juventus don't have a particularly imposing team. They're fairly good and in good form, but once again not a real threat for the title. Or at least they shouldn't be. Juventus ran circles around them. They were spraying it all over the pitch. Luckily, they were even given a man advantage. After a red card, they dominated the game and showed that even in their current climate and situation, they are still better than the boys in red. Only 1 goal in it as Manuel Locatelli deep strike takes a deflection, and ends up in the back of that as they go to Milan and come away with a 1-0 victory. They are only 2 points from the top of the league, as they will be relying on Roma to beat Inter Milan on Sunday. The truth is, Inter Milan should win the league easily. If they somehow collapse though, Juventus should be the ones to take advantage of it. I don't have a lot of trust in any of the other alternatives. That said, Inter Milan, I still stand by that they will win the league. However, no question the 3 big matches of last weekend could have a ripple effect, considering the implications of European football and the title race early this season. Julian Brandt will be Dortmund's best player of the 2020s. Julian Brandt played his 300th game in the Bundesliga on Friday night. His goal ended up being a very important one, as his brilliant touch and finish was the difference in Dortmund's 1-0 victory against Werder Bremen. Dortmund are currently holding a hot streak with 5 consecutive victories. They have not looked particularly strong for at least part of the season. Julian Brandt individual performances has somewhat covered up the cracks by Dortmund, while Friday's victory was much better. Collectively, it still was Julian Brandt that needed to answer the bell for them to collect maximum points. It's a work in progress, and they will continue to chip away at it to become a much more composed and collective side. However, the performance Friday night was more about Julian Brandt than anything else. He has been the best playmaker in the Bundesliga the last 3 years. He's probably been in that conversation for the last 5 to 7. That's the type of impact he can have on a side. They don't make anything of the title race last season without him. Without him this season they would be in big trouble. He may not put up the goddess stats or numbers. However, the impact and influence he has had on Dortmund over there the last 4 years is not to be sneezed at. Especially if you add the years before the Dortmund move he had at Leverkusen. He's been a game changer for a long time. He never seems to get the credit that he deserves. He was the Bundesliga the player of the season, yet they decided to give it to Jude Bellingham instead. Someone that had significantly less impact on the title race. He recently signed a new contract that will keep him in Dortmund another 4 years. He is still only 26 years old, with a lot of legacy still to build at Dortmund. However, I think we're not going to realize how important and vital he actually has been to Dortmund until the end of this decade. This might be a hot take or an unpopular opinion, but based on the reputation he has already built at Dortmund, and the projection of what he will continue to do in the future, there's no signs of slowing down with each season. He looks even more dangerous than the season before. He's been the best player in the Bundesliga this season so far, at least in the top 3 anyhow. However, I believe that Julian Brandt will be the best player of the 2020s at Dortmund. This yes includes Jude Bellingham and Erling Haaland and Marco Reus. At the end of the decade he will be recognized as the best player to wear the black and yellow in the 2020s. Jude Bellingham's success at Dortmund was tremendous. We've seen him continue to grow and dominate at Real Madrid. However, Julian Brandt's impact on Bellingham is undeniable. He really helped the young Englishman tap into what he was capable of. That said, during their time together Bellingham was never better than Brandt. When push came to shove in the big moments during their time together, Julian Brandt always delivered when needed. Haaland was a goal-scoring machine. He scored roughly 80 goals. During his time in Germany, he was a human highlight film at Dortmund. He also helped enhance the Norwegian and other areas besides goal scoring. His link-up play with the runs. He makes the movement a lot of those attributes. He learned from working with Brandt. In terms of movement and getting in the right position, staying on side and playing into the offside trap, Julian Brandt is a professor in that regard. Again, his stats aren't crazy, but it's all the other things he does that makes him so important. A lot of the things he does at City now was impacted by working with Julian Brandt at Dortmund. Julian Brandt has made the team of the season 4 of the last 5 years. He's been the best playmaker in the league for at least 3 years. He's been the best player in the league for 2 years. He has been heavily influential on Dortmund's success. And even though there's some big names that have played for the club, and that have done well, he will be the best player that has played for Dortmund this decade. There's many players who put up the stat sheet, and who have done tremendously well, but very few have had the level of consistency, impact, and created a legacy the way Julian Brandt has.